We've got big news out of the AFC East and Kyle Crabb's brand new top 100 prospects for the 2025 NFL Draft to break down for you today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5.
Joe, pour one out. Did anybody have on takes Robert Saleh first coach going? I know there were betting odds that included Robert Saleh fairly favorably, but we did the show yesterday and then I did Locked On Dolphins. And by the time I was done, my phone had been blowing up and I'm like, I wonder what injury news I missed. And it was not. It was missed phone calls from Chris Schubert, former producer of this program. And he wanted to talk about the Jets firing their head coach, his favorite team.
Yeah, it's if you had the take, spike the ball. Like this would be appropriate. And so definitely cash in on that receipt. Huge news though, Kyle Crabbs. I mean, things have not gone well for the Jets. Obviously, they have high expectations that have been manufactured by their roster decisions and the media hype train. And Ambassador Johnson, pretty upset about things. And to me, like there's so many things.
I'm glad you called him ambassador.
Yeah. Very respectful. Man, it's like, how do you start the conversation? My prevailing thought here is the Jets are looking for a spark. They're looking for some sort of spark, and this is their attempt to galvanize the troops. I know there's Aaron Rodgers layers to this, but I genuinely believe that this is a Jets team that's 2-3, 2 ugly losses in a row, offense is off schedule. This is your way to galvanize the troops the best you can.
But it's week 5.
Well,
it feels a little early for a Hail Mary, is I guess where I came in on this. And my worry is, okay, Robert Saleh's gone, and now you're elevating Jeff Ulbrich to be the head coach. Does that impact the preparation on the defensive side of the football, which is the strength of your team? So like now the DC now becomes the head coach and there's more, he has to be more hands-on with the entirety of the team. They're still contemplating making changes on the offensive coaching staff side of things. The team knew in the offseason that it had concerns about Hackett because they had pursued Arthur Smith and nothing ever came of it. What's your process as an organization to know that Robert Saleh had this short of a leash and had underachieved relative to the defensive prowess last year? I know they had quarterback issues and Aaron Rodgers missed the whole year, but like he's like 30-20, or he's 20-36 as a head coach. If he had this short of a leash and you started 2-3, like, you go back to the decision-making process in the offseason, and I know there's layers there about Aaron and him being on board with the situation because he wants to have his thumb on it. It's just a total mess. It's a total mess.
No, it certainly is. I think that the reason that the timing would make any sense to me is because your next 2 games are critically important. You host the Bills on Monday Night Football as your next game, and then you're at Pittsburgh. Fortunately for the Jets, 2 of their 3 losses have come against NFC teams. So if this is going to galvanize your team right now, you have probably 2 of your harder games coming up before you get into this stretch of the Patriots. You get the Texans, Cardinals, Colts, Seattle, Miami, Jacksonville, the Rams. So like figure yourself out right now. Like try to get the spark and momentum into this difficult stretch that you have, and then ride it out and see if you can't win the AFC East with 2 left to play against Buffalo and 2 left to play against Miami.
Like, dude, even before they got a Week 12 bye. Coming off of a trip to London, so that's unfortunate, right? Is a lot of teams go to overseas and then they get the bye. They didn't get that. I don't know, man. Like Buffalo at Pittsburgh, obviously at New England, that you should take care of business there. Houston, at least it's on a short week. But then, like, even Arizona, you got to go to Arizona. That's not looking like an easy out.
What's the path forward with Saleh? Bumbling your way to 7-10 or 8-9? Maybe it's with Ulbrich in the shakeup. Maybe.
Which revisits the question of what was your process in the offseason?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think Robert Saleh has shown us plenty of reasons to be questioning his leadership and his tactics and if he's the right guy for the job. Like, I totally get that piece of the conversation, but this is where they're at.
Right.
I don't know what it achieves, but I also don't like the outlook of Robert Saleh continuing in the tension that's been building up with Aaron Rodgers. So I guess I find myself a little bit more understanding of it, although it doesn't hide the fact that this is a circus.
I don't think it addresses anything.
It doesn't address anything other than I think you set a different course that maybe is better than the one that you're on. That's where I would find a level of optimism if I was a Jets fan. I don't think it hurts you. That's what the thing is. I don't think it hurts you. Not the only big piece of news out of the AFC East.
That's right.
New England Patriots have made a switch. Jacoby Brissett, thanks for everything. The future is now. Drake Maye, starting quarterback, as they're set to host the Houston Texans in Week 6. It was always a matter of when, right? I mean, first-round rookie quarterbacks, they start. And it takes until Week 6 for New England to make this choice.
He's getting Houston as his first.
Houston, yeah, with those tackles against Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter. One of the Houston high blitz rate team played cover one, or they play one high, middle of the field close, so a lot of stress on receivers. Like, it doesn't feel good to me, Kyle Krabs, but it's interesting because it felt like the Jacoby Brissett's job was to come in and be the meat shield while you figured out your personnel and your offensive line.
They haven't done that. They haven't done that.
Yeah, so it's like that piece of it's only gotten worse. So now's the time to put Drake Maye out there.
So, are you familiar with the line that they played against Miami? The starting 5?
Unrecognizable names at tackle. Kyle.
Okay, so Fedarian Lowe,
bad.
Who has been established as an upgradable option, and I'm being as nice as
You're
I can
so
be.
Tactful, Kyle Krabs. He
Michael Jordan, not basketball player Michael Jordan, but Michael Jordan at one of the guard spots. It was Nick Leverett at the other center spot. Michael Onwenu, who signed the contract extension, good player, played at right guard. And then DeMontre Jacobs played right tackle.
Don't know who that human being is, right?
Same. We're generally draft background.
Right. Don't know who that person is.
Yeah. So that was the starting 5 against Miami, presumably, and like Caden Wallace went on IR, David Andrews went on IR. Like this is the group we have to roll with, and we're going to put Drake Maye out there. And oh, by the way, you're going to play Houston in the first match. DeMontre Jacobs from Grambling State and USF, of course.
I hope he has a great career. 2
starts, more than most NFL players get.
Right. So what do you think should have been the plan here with Drake Maye? Obviously, we're concerned about the environment. We're concerned about Jacoby Brissett. Like, do you feel like this is just getting off of your plan?
I think sitting a rookie quarterback always sounds like a great idea until nobody starts showing up to the games and you're 1-4 and nobody has any reason to watch your football team.
Right.
Now, that's not the problem of Gerard Mayo, but it becomes his problem when the organization is not happy with the lack of interest in their football team.
Bob Kraft, definitely an influential owner, right? Not a backseat guy. So
sure. And it feels like as the dust has settled from the dynasty era of New England, it's become more and more apparent that Bob Kraft likes to, as all owners do, and it's their product. They can do whatever they want. But impose his influence at times. I would imagine that has something to do with this.
Getting a little antsy.
Yeah. Got to see what we got. Got to see if the kid can play.
Well, hopefully you don't break him.
Yeah, the worst thing you could do is be in an Anthony Richardson type situation, right?
Right.
Where it's like, man, he's got tools, but he's got a lot of growth that's ahead of him. Oh, okay, he showed some stuff in 3 games, and then we're not going to see him. That's all the evaluation opportunity we have for him is over by the middle of October in his rookie season.
But the Patriots had done such a good job of calibrating expectations, right?
Correct.
Of telling people what the plan was. Jacoby's our guy. Gerard Mayo saying that he's our starting quarterback until I say so, right? Like, they did all the right things, and then it's like, man, 1-4 sucks.
The tone of it, I know we got to go to break. And then when we come back, I just want to talk about the tone about how they talked about the quarterback situation.
All right, so we'll do that and get into Kyle Crabb's top 100 for the 2025 NFL Draft. Folks, be sure to stick with us. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy, so that way your lineups stay in play even if one of your guys gets hurt. PrizePicks also puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get money in as quick as 15 minutes. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game.
So this came from Mike Reese, who is the Patriots ESPN reporter.
Mm-hmm.
Notable shift in Gerard Mayo's answers regarding quarterback situation in his day after game video conference compared to past weeks. Mayo said last week the way the team won its only game was, quote, unsustainable, and he seems to be strongly considering switch to Drake Maye. What does that have to do with when Drake Maye is ready to play, he will play?
Nothing.
Right. And that for me is all you need to know is that the focus has shifted from Drake's going to play when Drake is ready to play to, well, the way that we competed and won our only game is not sustainable moving like for the rest of the season.
It's something I think we've been rightfully critical of teams when they deviate from a plan and accelerate things. Doesn't often go well. So we'll see. Good luck, Drake Maye, right? Good luck.
Good luck, Drake Maye.
Kyle Crabb's top 100, fresh off the press over at the 33rd team. You can see the full list with some analysis. We'll put a link in today's show notes. I want to dive into this with you, Kyle, because this is no small deal. It's 100 players. And so you've told us that you're at a pretty good place with your analysis on this draft. You're getting a feel for these players. I mean, we're pretty much halfway through the college season.
Right.
And so I'm 21 players deep. Everyone's seen exactly what I've done for this draft. You've done 100 players, and I want to focus in at the top of this draft because I think I've done a lot of the best players in this draft, and I'm seeing the way that you're stacking them. There's intriguing players here, but like my knee jerk in looking at this board is I feel like we're missing some talent at the top of this draft that you'd like to see. There's some good players, but man, I don't see the things I'm looking for. I'm looking for like big time quarterback prospects that you love. I'm looking for offensive tackles that profile as that dude. I'm looking for like a big time Myles Garrett, Bosa type pass rusher, man. I'm not seeing that stuff. So it's a different type of makeup here. Just like are you picking up on my vibe here at the top, or do you feel like maybe I'm underestimating some of this top?
Yeah, I think it does create some interesting dynamics with what teams need and how they covet draft picks. And you'll see certain years where trades are easier to happen than other years because of the available stock pool of talent or how deep it is at the top. And I would say you only really have a handful of elite prospects. One of them is a two-way player that you have to decide what side of the ball you want them to play on predominantly, and Travis Hunter. He's my top-ranked player in the class. Another one of them is somebody who you have to decide if you want to play him off ball or on the edge. And that's somebody we did yesterday in Abdul Carter. And we kind of went over like, that's not a player that I think is going to be for everybody, even though I think he has elite tools and an elite ceiling and an elite package of like physically what he's capable of being. And then you have a safety and a running back who I think are two of the other 6 players that I would generally perceive to be like elite players.
Mm-hmm.
So it does create this, I guess, vacuum where supply versus demand. And if the Patriots end up with the number 1 overall pick and they need defense, or if they need offensive line and everybody wants to give him a tackle, are you just going to reach on the tackle and do Eric Fisher at number 1 overall? Right? Like that's
right.
Now, Lane Johnson came in the same draft, and that was 2013.
Man, you know what, Kyle? I've never considered that until you just said that. Wow.
Because Lane Johnson went 3 or 4.
Was that? It was Jocko, all these other guys, and so Lane was the best one all along, and he wasn't the first one. That's tough. I know he was kind of raw coming out, but boy,
yeah. So but like, do you put yourself in that spot? Do you take best player available, knowing that you could get an elite player, but there's only a handful of them? Does it make it easier to trade? Does it make it harder to trade? Like it's hard to kind of, at least until you know how the draft order is going to shake itself out, like what you think it impacts the economics of the top of the board. But yeah, I think this is a really compelling draft. But as you get into it, it's more compelling through 30 through 50 or 40 through 70, I think is where you get like the compelling options relative to their in a vacuum cost of like, this is a top 10 pick or this is a top 20 pick. Am I getting good value for a top 20 pick? Depends on like maybe positional value can help sell you on it. Maybe that helps see more quarterbacks go. But yeah, you if you're looking for a hallmark player at the top of the class, you have Travis Hunter. But if you're looking for checking boxes for an edge guy and a tackle and a lockdown corner and a bona fide stud quarterback, like you probably check one of those boxes.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. If you look at the top of my board, I have the same 2 players in a different order. I have Will Johnson 1. I have Travis Hunter number 2. I'm just kind of curious, as I'm sure you thought hard about the order of those players as you presented this board. What was it that gave Hunter that nudge for you? I don't think there's a wrong answer. I'm just curious what you are clinging to.
Man, I just think it's the instincts plus the ceiling. This is like he spends half his time at wide receiver.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, and seeing some of the plays on the ball in space and how he leverages route combinations and how he sees it and feels it and anticipates it. And he knows when he has safety help over the top so he can be aggressive and drive on stuff underneath. Like all of that as a guy who does it part-time. It's like he's already got all of it. And I think he's better in transition than Will Johnson is. I think Will Johnson's more physical. I think Will Johnson's better in press. I think Will Johnson's probably better like playing in the trail and man coverage. But if Hunter can play eyes through to the quarterback and just read, it's like that instinct element of him is top of the top of the top. And it's like he's not even doing this all the time yet.
Yeah.
So that was what sold it for me.
Heck of a case. Your QB1 is Cam Ward.
It is.
Out of Miami. He's your number 14 player on the draft. You've been talking about Cam Ward for, I don't know, at least 3 years now. And I'm curious, like, we'll probably get to him soon in our weekly session getting to players.
Mm-hmm.
Are you like, where are other people seeing, like, are other people thinking Cam Ward's number 1, or is this kind of an island that you're on? I'm just curious. And what is it that you've seen this year that's like, this is happening?
This quarterback class has a lot of different flavors. It has a lot of different options for stylistically what you want. Cam for me just has that gene. And I believe I included this in the analysis. And I did it when I did top 10 quarterbacks at the end of last week for quarterback rankings for 30-13. It was top 10. And Cam was at number 1 there. And it's you're going to have to live and die with some negative plays and some bad, like overly aggressive decisions. But he's never bothered by pass rush. It's like that. And you think about a lot of the best quarterbacks and how they navigate pressure and extend plays and can see the field, and they run to throw, but they're capable of running to run, regardless of how good of an athlete like they tangibly are. Like, nobody's going to sit here and confuse Pat Mahomes for Lamar Jackson.
Right.
But when he moves and when he gets off his spot, he does it with the intent to throw, but he's capable of doing it to run and understanding when those times are there. And like, Cam just has that same inherent feel about his game. He's a very polarizing player because a lot of people don't like the negative plays. He had one of the worst interceptions you'll see all season against Cal. Rolling to his right, all the way back across his body. But he's made that play before at Washington State.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit less of the tame the stallion that I think exists with like Jordan Love. You remember how Jordan was very like, man, you're going to have to get the reins on this guy. But if you do, and he finds out how to tightrope it, he can be really darn good. I don't think it's to that degree. I think you see more working of progressions and moving eyes with intent and moving to throw instead of moving to sandlot. That like there was with Jordan at Utah State is just a parallel example for another quarterback that kind of has that same element around and navigating pressure. So there's people that like Shedeur Sanders as the top of the quarterback class. There's people that like Cam Ward. People that are a little bit more risk averse probably like Shedeur more than Cam. People who are traditional, old school pocket passer but can move. Probably like the way that Carson Beck works at the line of scrimmage. He has a lot of control at the line of scrimmage. And they had him on quoted him on a broadcast a couple weeks ago that says, I want the play in my helmet and I want you to shut up so I can get up the line of scrimmage. I need to work the line of scrimmage. Garrett Nussmeier from LSU has some fans. I am probably going to continue to end up being higher on Nussmeier as the season plays out. I think you had, and ESPN did an executive poll and Jalen Milroe got votes for QB1 too. Quinn Ewers, who I don't even have in my top 100. Because I'm not particularly a fan of his game. And we can get into that if you want, but I know we got to get the break. It's just the whole sales pitch of modest physical tools, not a big athletic skill set to work with, really good supporting cast with really good playmakers around. Like, we've done this several times, and then those players get to the league and everybody thumbs their nose at them relative to other players. And it's like, are we going to do this again?
Right. All right. Coming up on the other side of it, let's get into the top risers, some of the players that have really caught your eye so far to start this season. We'll do that in just a moment. Be sure to stick with us. Hey, NFL fans, you could start this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and a brand new documentary-style course on Marxism, socialism, and communism. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register, hillsdale.edu/lockedon. So, Kyle, who is that guy for you? You know, you've ranked 100 players here.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the guy here that you're just getting excited about as you get more into the tape, as the sample size expands? Like, the whole thing is available for you to pick. I want to know that name that stands out to you as I'm getting excited.
I would definitely, and I mentioned him already at quarterback, but Garrett Nussmeier is that guy for me. He's a player who elected not to transfer out of LSU in the midst of the transfer era portal college football and played behind Jaden Daniels last year. And you see a live arm. You see ability to get off his spot. You see toughness to stand in the pocket. You see working the full field and working progressions. He's not as like Mason Taylor, the tight ends in the top 100 as a good pass catching tight end, and Kyron Lacey's there at wide receiver, but it's not like they have like a great supporting cast. Like he makes a lot of stuff tick. He's had big moments. Had a double-digit come-from-behind victory against South Carolina, in which he led a game-winning drive, and they were down 3 scores early in that game on the road in South Carolina against a good Gamecocks defense. So there's been a lot of moments for Garrett Nussmeier and I thought he looked great against USC in the opener. And unfortunately, they just kind of – the offense didn't click down the stretch, and USC made a few extra plays and won the game. But that's the player who, for me, was – not on any radar whatsoever, because he had like 200 career passing attempts across like 3 or 4 seasons before, in 3 seasons before this season, and has really shown pro level stuff. I would also just throw this out there as a nugget. I was talking at the end of last week with a former NFL executive and asked them about the quarterback class. And they said if they would draft any of the quarterbacks from this year's class based off of what we currently know, Garrett Nussmeier would be their choice.
So he's got some love out there.
Yeah.
How about if I were to force you to pick a player on the defensive side of the football? Who on that side has really, really the word I'm looking for is get you excited. I that's something that matters to me as I watch players. It's like, I see what they can do, but like how do I feel in my gut? Like they're just really exciting to me. And maybe they're not a top 10 player, a top 20 player for you, but like, man, you like how they're headed. You're like where they're headed, the trajectory.
I would point to this safety class. I think there's a lot of interesting safeties. One name is Nick Emanwari from South Carolina. Big, 6'3", like 210, 215. The NFL's showing an appetite for these kinds of guys, right? He comes in 51st on my board from South Carolina. Had an interception of Nussmeier in the game against South Carolina. He has 2 interceptions this year in which he baits throws as an underneath zone defender, and where he stems pre-snap, and you can see he's communicating with the guys behind him to kind of be on the same page, and then falls out and then drifts into throwing windows based off of feel with what's in his peripherals to attack the football. So you've got a big, long, 6'3", 210, pretty good tackler. I think his missed tackle rate this year is around 10%. But a guy that can move around and play low and has ball skills and zone instincts to potentially be somebody that if you want to play him in half field coverage, you can. If you want to play him on the second level, he's more than capable of doing that. He has the stature to do it. And I think that continues to be a position where, as the league evolves, these safeties that can play in the box are going to kind of refine their value because of the trends of what offenses are doing across the league. So that's the name that comes to mind. Also, Keon Sabb is from at Alabama, who is a Michigan transfer, is another one. So 2 safeties in the top 51.
My last question for you is this. In the pre-show, you started, we unfortunately, sometimes we start doing the podcast before we actually start recording the podcast. Right. And you were like, man, I really like a lot of these day 2 offensive linemen. What are some of those names? And I feel like a lot of times when we do this, those players right now become like end of first round picks by the time we get to draft day. So who are some of those names for you?
Right. So Oregon's Ajani Cornelius is one. Armand Membu from Missouri plays right tackle.
Nice, easy names for you to say here. This is tremendous.
Yeah, he's 6'3", 325, and he plays right tackle. I think he can play tackle at the next level, but I also wouldn't be surprised if some people with like his compact frame want him to play guard. Really heavy hands, really good base, good anchor. He's had some opportunities to go against good pass rushers. Missouri played Boston College, and BC's got a pass rusher on this list in the top 100 as a long, explosive, bendy guy. So you got to showcase it against a couple different kinds of skill sets for Membu. And then the other one that I would shout is Marcus Mbao. I hope I'm saying it right. MBOW. Plays right tackle for Purdue. This is 6'5", 300. Played half the season last year and had a season-ending injury. Really good movement skills. Got tested a little bit by some of the power in Nebraska with some of the guys that they have with positional versatility that can line up over top of you and attack the B gap when you're inside. But movement skills in space, really clean with his pass sets. So there's a number of offensive linemen. Anthony Belton from NC State, like big time length and vines for arms and a pretty good mover too. So you need inside guys, you need outside guys, you need guys that can play tackle that potentially kick inside. Ernest Green's in the 70s from Georgia on this list, who plays left tackle for them. I really like Tate Ratledge as a guard. I actually have him in my top 30. I think he's a high floor player at guard. He's missed the last couple of weeks for Georgia, but there's all kinds of options and high ceiling, high floor, positional versatility guys. It's just which ones really make the most of the back half of the college season and then do well in the pre-draft process.
There's a lot of names. Got to start watching these guys, Kyle Krabs.
Yep. So we'll get some big uglies, some love here on the show in the coming weeks.
You better give me this Texas A&M. You got this Texas A&M defensive lineman in your top 10. That seems like
Nick
something we should do. Well, that needs to be a next week guy.
Okay, let's do that.
We'll figure out the rest.
Do you want to pick a few more? I'll let you pick them since you have a list.
Well, I mean, I'm going down the list here. I'm like, okay, I got a defensive lineman from Michigan, Kenneth Grant. That feels like a good one.
You want two defensive linemen?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, I mean, Cam Ward's there at 14. We can do him. Jalen Walker.
Let's do Cam Ward since we're off the heels of the Virginia. Yeah, so we did Shedeur this week, and then Cam had heroics the last 2 weeks against Virginia Tech on Friday night, and then ACC after dark against Cal this past weekend. So
all right,
the Canes are off this week, so there will be no more games for Cam between now and when we do them next week.
That seems like a good one. Grant, Scout, is it Scourton? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Nick
and
Scourton.
Ward.
Yep.
All right, heavy hitters. Let's do it.
Great. So that's next week. We are previewing NFL Week 6 tomorrow on the show, and then Takes on Friday. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Make it a great rest of your day. We are out of here at God Crabs. He's Joe Marino.